Zoe Wilson. I'm here at ESPC in Dublin, and I'm joined for this interview by Agnius. Agnius, you presented this week on the topic of Power Platform and governance. What are 3 key takeaways that attendees should remember?
Well, hi again, and nice being here. And yes, I did do that. And I think that the main things are probably that lots of the governance things in the Power Platform, just like pretty much everywhere else in the Microsoft ecosystem, are there that it's possible to do, but they're not kind of pre-configured by default. Microsoft seems to do things in a way where they want adoption as the main priority, and that's why they're removing friction from everything as much as possible. And that's why even though we can do governance, there's features and functionalities for that, they're not really enabled by default. And there's plenty of those things, like tenant isolation is the major thing, for example, that's off by default in the Power Platform. And there are plenty of other things. There's plenty of tools. I've also talked about those. And yeah. And basically, pretty much every functionality in the Power Platform governance packages that are already there, they're basically disabled by default. And then there's plenty of tools made by third parties, communities, and so on to fill the gaps where we're still missing features. So that was also a major topic as well.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting the way that you describe that as Microsoft focusing on adoption and reducing friction, because it's not only true in the Power Platform, it's true across lots of their products. And I was talking to someone earlier this week where we were saying that basically they built the car with Copilot and now they're retrofitting the seatbelts and the safety features. And I think Power Platform's obviously been around for a little bit longer, but we've seen that with Power Platform as well, where they just want to get it out there and they want to make it sticky.
Yeah, it really felt like that. And one of the points I made during my session was that it feels like there was a point, at some point, a couple of years ago probably, where they just kind of suddenly realized that their personal productivity tool set is now an enterprise product. And they need enterprise features, which weren't really there. And they started implementing those. So now we're getting stuff in there that wasn't there a couple of years ago. We're actually moving towards native functionalities in the product that allow us to do governance properly without having to install external third-party tools to do it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So how does this topic of governance in Power Platform connect to some of the broader trends that we see across the Microsoft ecosystem?
Well, I kind of feel like, what I've just said, basically, that the fact that, it seems like lots of the functionality that's supposed to be there for enabling governance, making it easier for admins to actually govern, monitor, maintain the tools that users actually use. That's probably similar situation with M365 as well. There's a reason why we have so many sponsors here at ESPC who specialize in doing governance for M365, for example, because that's not natively in the Microsoft tool. So that's, again, probably similar. Now, it's possible, it can be done, but you need to know how to do it. You need expertise, and in some cases, you actually need to build those tools yourself or buy a product from a service provider to be able to do it, even though lots of users are actually using these products on a daily basis. It's really hard to manage them with the native functionality that's there.
Completely agree. And when you look at the rebadging of Power Virtual Agents to Copilot Studio, it's obviously still a core part of the Power Platform, but it's also now positioned as the low-code agent builder for the Copilot ecosystem. So everything that you've talked about in terms of governance challenges for Power Platform, it's even more crucial to fix them now before we have this proliferation of agents.
Yeah, exactly. And we're now kind of getting something called Agent 365, which we're not even sure what's that supposed to be. That's presumably going to be a native Microsoft hub for governance for agents, which, when I think of agents and Copilot Studio, I think it's as of it as a part of the Power Platform, and I would think that it should be governed together with everything else in the Power Platform. But now we're getting something completely different, completely separate from everything else. That's sort of a weird move, I think. I would like it all to be governed together, because it is part of a broader set of tools. It's usually used together with the other tools in the Power Platform.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting perspective. And because you've kind of got Copilot Studio in this weird intersection where it's both Power Platform and it's also part of the agent ecosystem, it kind of straddles both, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you're kind of not really sure where that lands. And, it is also why the governance topic really expands over from the Power Platform onto M365 or vice versa, depending on where you're standing initially from. If you add Copilot Studio, you're suddenly forced to kind of worry about multiple tool sets and multiple platforms to manage.
Yeah, I think the main lesson there is that basically you need to have governance across all of your platforms.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you think about governance in Power Platform, what is a common mistake that you see teams making in this space, and how can they fix it?
Well, the major mistake and the main thing is that, again, they kind of expect it because it's Microsoft, right? Because it's a huge corporation with lots of tools that they use on a daily basis, they kind of expect it to be secure by default. And by default, it really, there's security features, yes, but it's not really, enabled. And one of the main things, the single thing I mentioned during my session, to the attendees, if you forget everything else and just take out one thing from my session, it should be about the tenant isolation, which is one of the settings in the Power Platform Admin Center, the most important one, arguably. Everything else under security for the Power Platform goes to waste if you leave it disabled, but it is disabled by default. And you need to enable it. You need to know that you need to enable it. And there were plenty of people in my session who didn't know that, and they were thanking me afterwards that I've told them about it.
Yeah, that's quite scary. So if people want to keep learning about this, what are some resources or tools that you can recommend? Where should people go to get started?
Well, there are actually quite a few useful articles in Microsoft Learn. That's the first thing you would obviously look up. And there are a few frameworks from prominent people. I've started looking into governance when I was in Dublin, actually here. What was it, 2 years ago in EPPC in Dublin? There was a workshop around it that was very interesting. But what I've seen is that there are groups, there are communities around it, but there's probably, the content is quite dry. So if you actually want to learn stuff, the best bet would probably be trying to find people who have the common cause. There's great community around admin and governance on WhatsApp, for example. A few MVPs run it. Craig White is the main guy in there. They've got lots of tips and they help out people. So that's a great starting point as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me. I hope you enjoy the rest of ESPC.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.